Okay, is this thing working? Should be. Okay, is it working? Somebody comment in the chat if it's working. I think there's only one viewer. But basically this is just a test. And I'm trying to work on where to look, what to show you guys, all kinds of stuff. But for anybody who is watching, I'll answer any questions. And if you have questions on my work, if you want to see some of my work, I can show you that. So, if we go here. So I've basically been working on a ton of stuff. I know I have not been uploading to this YouTube channel at all, but I needed to get my website up. I needed to get my visual overview started at least. I don't know when that's done because choosing what to go in that is difficult. And but I mean, as you can see, like, guys, don't worry. I've gone nowhere. I have been doing an enormous amount of work, and we're coming back this month with, full force, like full force like I've never put into this. But I have to figure out all these systems, so that I can live stream and show you guys my work, and we can talk about it, and I'd love to answer any questions that anybody has. I haven't shared this to my Instagram, so if you're seeing this, lucky you, because because it's a test. I didn't want to really look totally terrible. I've been working on this all night. It's been a long night, so if I'm tired, sorry, but I got really excited when it worked. I did a private stream and it worked. So I was all bummed out. It was like, the bit rate is too low and it won't work, and I thought it was my internet connection. And I thought, oh well, there goes my ability to live stream, answer questions, show you guys my work. But then I was able to figure it out. So but I don't know, I can see there's a couple people watching, but this work started as an attempt to understand consciousness, and it morphed into basically, a theory of everything. But it defined a theory of everything. It discovered the theory. It's still ongoing. The work is ongoing. The implications of it are vast, and I'm going to start talking about this month some of the things that I was kind of honestly afraid to talk about without having a bigger audience. And I've built up pretty decent audience on Instagram, and now I have my website, and I highly suggest you look at it if you haven't seen it. It's called sentientsingularity.com, and it has an overview of the theory, and that will be added to. It has some things that I've written. There's tons more that I'm going to add to the site that I've already written, and tons more models, and we're going to add way more videos. But it's just a starting place where people can go and kind of get an overview of what's going on. But basically, if you don't know what this project is, this was the discovery of monotheism in science. And if that freaks you out, then know that you are not alone. It freaked me out more than it will freak you out, because guess what, guys? Imagine not just being told that this is real, but discovering it on your own and being an atheist. It's a little I get it, it's a lot, but people there's this enormous dogma inside the physics community against anything that you might say, God. And I have this video that's called God is a Good Theory. It's like, well, this is true and very important to say because, I don't care if you go to church, if you go to a mosque, if you go to synagogue, I don't care. Like, that's not the point. The point is the universe, and if I'm looking in random places, it's weird. I don't know where to look in the camera. I also drew a little smiley face on the tripod, which shows kind of where I think I'm supposed to look, which is right there. I might just have to paste a picture or something because it's a little difficult for me to know where to look with this setup. But the camera actually looks good. I didn't think it would. In tests, it looked like shit. But it's looking much better. I kind of want to tell people on Instagram that we're here. Maybe we can get some new viewers to come into the live. So maybe we go here. Live on YouTube right now, taking questions. YouTube name is equal to theory. Not good at spelling. Of Every0ne. Oh my gosh. I'm just going to say link in bio. Link in bio. Okay. And then we'll go to YouTube. And we got the, how do we do this? Okay. And live on YouTube. For theory of Every0ne. Sorry about this, guys, but I kind of want to make a thing of this. Like I said, if you have a question, ask it. I would love to hear you guys' questions. For at Theory of Every0ne. Link in bio. Taking questions. Yeah. Like I said, this is not polished, but you gotta just do it sometimes. It's difficult to just get started on things like this because you want it to be so polished, and everybody else that you see is so polished that you're looking at, and you gotta abandon that a little bit. obviously, like, you really have to abandon that, as this looks absolutely wretched. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Okay, so let's see if there's any questions. If you're watching this, which I don't think anybody is right now, but I think that we will start to see live viewers coming in, please ask any questions if you have them. And, you know, I don't know if you can like a stream while it's live or anything. We gotta figure this out. Maybe if I have a question, you can answer me. So, let's say, this is mainly a test. Making questions. Okay, so like I said, I've done a ton of work. If you have not seen my website yet, sentientsingularity.com, I highly suggest that you check it out. We can even look at it here. So let's say we go to Safari. I think you should be able to see this Sentient Singularity. Wow. Great. Like I said, guys, rough. Dang. Need to just get a more secure thing for this. But, alright, it should be fairly secure. I'm trying to make sure that I can see what's going on. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see my my screen, but this is my website, and basically it has the what I call the verse model. You know, up on the homepage, it has an overview of the theory, and you can see that basically this is what it is. It is Sentient Singularity Theory is monotheism in a scientific context. You know, I got into a debate with someone on Twitter who said, you know, oh, this is all about spin. It's all about spin, guys. And I was like, yeah, well, yeah, it's kind of all about spin, but what's making everything spin? Like, what's the explanation for everything spinning? And he was like, well, it just spins. And I was like, well, it doesn't just spin. Like, there's a reason for the spinning. And I said that consciousness is fundamental to all of this, and it is the reason that we see spin. And it's like, think about if you were a dog and you had to catch something, and all there is, that there's no squirrels or anything like that for you to catch. There's no other dogs, there's no balls, there's no, like, you know, rabbits. It's just you. Nothing else in the universe. But you have to catch something because you want to catch something. And, you know, what kind of movement does that create? Well, you're going to catch the only thing that you can catch, or you're going to try and catch it, and that is yourself. You're going to try and chase your own tail, which is what dogs do anyways. But it's not just dogs, it's also you and me and every conscious being on Earth, which is far, and not just on Earth, in the universe. It's far more than you would think. Like, atoms are conscious. You don't think they're conscious, you think that's woo. Listen, woo is true sometimes, and it's very easy to show. And I'm going to show it, but I'm waiting for, you know, hopefully a few more people end up showing up. But you can see on my website here, we've got an overview, we've got a visual summary, still work in progress, and we have, tons of models, just tons and tons of models. And we have my writings, which is reimagining 0 and 1 is the only one I have up now, but there's plenty more. And we have videos, updates, support. Highly, recommend supporting that which you find important. I haven't really been putting out too much content on this for people to probably feel like, this is work that's important enough to support, but hopefully I start showing something that you guys find valuable. And like I said, there's tons of ways to support. I've said that in the past. You don't have to give money, but it would help, because being a philosopher who says what's true sometimes makes you a little bit difficult to employ. And I really want to start getting into the good stuff, but it's also tough when I know that it's going to result in controversy. But it's this Sentient Singularity Theory has the ability to make sense of almost every problem right now that we have that you think is so difficult. Like everything from our misunderstandings of gender and our craziness that we go down with sexuality and and just race and all these social problems that or social issues that we just can't seem to wrap our heads around, and they just don't seem to make sense to really anybody, because nobody, one side will always claim to get it, but nobody gets it. Nobody's understanding what's happening with pretty much any of these things. And this is a very big problem, because our institutions are utterly failing at telling us anything interesting and anything true that we can build from. And that sucks. So, let's see here. It's very dry here. My lips are chapped. Where is there how many people are watching this? Hopefully some people start joining, but I have no idea how many people are watching. If you're watching this, just say here in the chat. That would be very helpful, just so I can see how this works. But this is something I want to do every day. It's very hard. One of the things that I realized was that it was very hard to continue to make videos about all the even though I have so many topics I want to make videos about. It was very hard to make videos on all these topics, because one, it's a lot of work to make a polished video, and it's not inspiring. You put it up, it gets some views, but it took so much work to do, and you can't really get into the the grit of everything. All my cages are gonna start coming on. I call this the Zudio. It's it's pretty cool. I'll show you guys around at some point, but it's filled with probably 60 reptiles. But it's much better to have a setting where you can answer people's questions, you can engage with people. It's much more inspiring. It doesn't make you want to wake up in the morning after you've done 4 different videos. Your first couple, it's super inspiring, but after that, it really becomes just a chore, and I don't want this to be a chore. I sit and I talk about this all day long with my fiance, and I need to give her a break. So it's important that I start just live streaming and taking people's questions. So I have so much more engagement on Instagram, but I don't I can't really show people my screen easily on Instagram, and so I mean, maybe, like, I don't know. See here, though, like, you guys can look at my face. How bright am I going to get over time on this? We'll see as all these lights start coming on around me and the glares start kicking in. Okay. I would love to be able to just live stream to Instagram. That would be awesome. So if anybody knows how to do that without just doing it from the phone, please let me know. Let's see here, though. I need to be able to switch between, showing my screen and not. Like, you can't just be like my face. I have to be able to show it. It's not enough to just sit in front of the camera with my face. I'm good looking, but like not that good looking. So let's see here. Yeah, it doesn't seem like you can go live. You live stream from YouTube to Instagram. Can you do that? Live streaming from your PC to Instagram. That's basically what I'm looking for. Is it frozen? Because I'm trying to do too many things? Okay, grab my phone. Try and get some people on here, but let's just kind of go through this. Hopefully you guys put your questions in, but so I want to like show some cool discoveries, but there's nobody watching, so. But, I guess I can just show you guys. Okay. So, I'm hoping that you guys can see this right here. This is my verse model. As you can see, this is calculating, and it is if I put a 3 here, every single number changes all the way down. So this is all calculative. It's not just random numbers that I put in there. But what's interesting is there's that whole saying of like 42 is the answer to life, the universe, and everything. And I showed you guys in my video of God is a good theory and Sentient Singularity Theory, part 2, like how the universe was created. I showed that what 42 represents is wisdom, and that you can kind of see why that's the case. And you can get that from the quantum of consciousness model, which is this thing right here. And it's basically, you can see that this is 33, which is when you add this way and, to the side, and you multiply going up, and then you end up with 33. And then when you add 33 to the count of the construct that it came from, which is 9, you get 42. So, equals this plus count 9, 42. And what this is it's wisdom, because this is self-awareness, and then when you add the information that is the construct that it came from, basically you're saying I'm aware of myself and I am also aware of where I came from. And that's obvious. It's not like woo or anything like that. It's like, this is self-awareness. It's a 3x3 grid looking at itself in the mirror, seeing 3 twice, which is 3 by 3. 3 by 3 is seeing 3 by 3. This is not a coincidence. That's random. There's no such thing as randomness in mathematics. It is just true. And I call it an extra arithmetic symmetry. And it is a real thing. When you add that to the construct that it came from, which is 9, you get 42. So what is the construct that you come from? Another consciousness. It means I'm aware of myself, and I'm also aware that I came from, and I'm subject to, and I am within another consciousness. It's not enough to just say, oh, I come from a spinning universe. It's like, well, what the hell is that? You come from another consciousness. So let me just bring this to the front so I know what's going on. Gosh, there's so much. I have so much on my desktop, guys. But when we look at this, we can see another symmetry with this. So you have 4 here and 84 here. And when you take 84 divided by 4, you get 21. When you take 399, you divide that by 19, you get another 21. And when you add the two together, you get 42. So even the verse that is created by the quantum of consciousness ends to 42. Fascinating. That is amazing. It's good to see that there's more people coming on here. Like I said, let me know any questions you have. Criticisms, whatever it is, I don't care. But I'd love the chance to, engage with people on this. And there's no way to bring this to the universities or anything like that. We have to do this as people who realize that the institutions have failed us, and if you see truth in this, then share it or support it. And your viewership is enough. If it resonates with you. If it doesn't and you just want to trash it, then just, there are cat videos for you to watch. But this structure is obviously beautiful. And, I know Sabine Hossenfelder, who is, she's a physicist, and I think in Germany. And she's always, talked about how, beauty is leading physicists astray. And Eric Weinstein is always like, oh, well, there's most people it does lead astray, but a few people it leads, perfectly. I'm definitely one of those people that, does the beauty method. But I would say it's not, I don't even try and do the beauty method of science. It's more like I'm searching for symmetries, and I can see when one occurs, and that when I search for what is correct, beauty is emergent. And, I would say, and so would, some of the best, scientists out there, the best, not people who think they're the best, but the very best, the people who came up with the double helix, Watson and Crick, those guys, Einstein, those guys, even Eric Weinstein, him, Robert Edward Grant, these people understand that when you look for beauty, what is correct is emergent. So I look for correctness, and beauty ends up being emergent. And it's obvious, guys, this is the most beautiful model of the universe that exists in 2 dimensions. I mean, that's gorgeous. is subjectively gorgeous. This shape is... it is the most... look at this. That's like a Penrose stairs on steroids. But it's just gorgeous. I could not have made that. Guys, I suck at art. But it's an emergent structure. It's an inevitable structure. And when, you know, what's interesting is the other day I wanted to figure out how many of these, you know, quanta of consciousness I used in a verse. So I wanted to figure out how many of these I used in this. So here's one, and here's one, and here's one, and the number that I got was 163, I think. And, you know, when you look at the quantum of consciousness, you can see 3, 6, 9. This was something that Tesla spoke about, and he said, you know, if you understand 3, 6, 9, you will understand the secrets of the universe, or something like that. And of course, it is in the building block of the universe. But not only is it in the building block, I used 163 of those to get this. And for a while, I searched 163 on Numbermatics or whatever.com, great website. Came up with nothing interesting as far as facts go. But then eventually I realized that it's this equals. Hopefully you can see that. There we go. 3 times 6 times 9. Oh, it's 162. That's what it is. I didn't get 163 here. I got 162. But that's amazing. Like, that shows that even this model, it's like this model is 42, the quantum of consciousness, and the verse model is 42, as you can see, you know, I just showed you here. And this is 369, and this is 369. It's 3 times 6 times 9, and you get this. It's just incredible. Like, this structure is amazing. There's so many things about it. So I can show you so much more. Like, see how many people are watching. 4. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. The guy who said, Neurot, this stuff is awesome. Thanks. Share the stream, you know, like, give it a like, and if, you know, share your thoughts. Like, I hope I pronounced your name. Neurot? Okay. Oh, you're a bear. Sweet. Welcome. This model matches up also with DNA. So DNA, if we want to look at DNA, and let's go like way over here. Like, guys, there's no way that monotheism doesn't win. Because if I'm right and this is the scientific context of monotheism, it's just too consistent. So you can see this is the spin structure of DNA, and you can see that when you look at the helical diameter of the B form, the A form, and the Z form, it's 19 and 19 and 19. And you can see that the sum of the base pairs per turn is 33. Fascinating. What's interesting about this is that when you go over to the quantum of consciousness, you sum it, you can see right here in the bottom, sum is 19. So the internal value of the information that is calculated, because this is all calculating, it's not, you know, numbers that I put in there, it starts with 1, and then it just builds. It adds one way and it, you know, multiplies going the other. And you get these numbers. But when you sum them on the interior, you get 19. Fascinating, considering that, you know, the helical diameter of DNA is 19. Not only that, watch this. I can't believe how far some of this has come, but Where is it? There's so much work on here, guys. Okay. So, what I want to show you is if we go here, highlight this, you can see down here the count is 19. I wanted to figure out what was the biggest square that I could make in this. And what I figured out is that this is 1. You can't make one giant square. You can make 1, and then you can make 1 more. And they're overlapping. They're a double helix through the center of this. And they're both squares are literally 19 count by 19. So the sum in the building block of this was 19, but the count in the arrangement of it is 19. And so there's two 19 by 19 squares. That's a double helix, guys. Like, this contains the mathematics of DNA in it. And I didn't try and do any of this. I just was like, oh, well, like, I'm trying to, like, think about calculation or thought. I was trying to figure out AI and my own thinking process. And it's like, well, if you start with one bit of information and, there's two forms of growth. One of them is addition, one of them is subtraction. Oh, one of them is addition, one of them is multiplication. Multiplication is the multiplying of information that is, already there, and addition is the adding of information that isn't yet there. So, like, these two forms of growth lead to, spin, essentially. Multiplying, as something multiplies and adds at the same time, it's like spinning. And you can see that this structure was created. Way more cool things. Watch this. People talk about 432 hertz. 432. 432. 432. 432. What the heck? Like, it's amazing. And you can see that in this model. So you look here. This is 432. This is 432. And all of these numbers that people talk about that nobody really understands, but everybody knows is like related to consciousness or God or mysticism or something like that. They all come up in these models. And so, there's no way this is wrong. That doesn't mean I'm interpreting everything correct, but like the structure and the math is too perfect. And, I'll show later, it lines up with quantum mechanics and like how even the charge and spin and the charge plus the spin and, the sum of the charge and the plus the spin of all of the fermions, which is the matter particles, which is quarks and leptons, adds up to 1 1/3. This is because, as I've said in my video, God is a good theory. God divided his energy by 3 in order to kickstart creation. So, like, he had to put 1/3 of his energy into creation because he couldn't put half and he couldn't put it all, and because it had to fit inside him, he had to be able to sustain it and be sovereign over it, which means he has to have more energy left over after the division. If you divide yourself by 3 and you put 1/3 in, you are left with 2/3, which is 66.666 percent, and you give 33.33333 repeating percent of your energy towards creation. But really, he's not really left with 66% because he's still so sovereign over his creation that it's better to just look at him as 1 still. And so you add, and this is how addition happens. you add the 1/3 to the 1, and you get 1 1/3. And so he increased the amount of information via creation, because it was nothing but God before creation, or not before creation, but kind of like beyond creation, because there was no time. So you can't even say before creation. But you get 1 1/3 afterwards. And this is consistent with, people's talking about the Trinity, and in physics they talk about something called triality. And you can see it here. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, there's down, strange, bottom are the negative or feminine quarks. You can see up, charm, truth as the 3 positive or masculine quarks. Electron, muons, and taus are the 3, electrons. And electron, neutrinos, muon, neutrinos, and tau neutrinos are the 3 generations, they call them, of neutrinos. And literally, there's this structure where everything is divided by 3. And the charges are divided by 3. And then there's the binary aspect to everything. So I call it, the binary triality. And it's this pattern of 6 that is everywhere. I'm just kind of going and riffing until people, ask more questions or something. But you can see right here, this is a binary triality pattern. You can see it in the fundamental moods. Happy, sad, excited, scared, content, and bored. Fundamental equations, just like anything divided by 1 is equal to itself, anything times 1 is equal to itself, anything divided by itself is equal to 1, anything times 1 is equal to 1, anything except 0 divided by 0 is equal to infinity, and anything times 0 is equal to infinity. Even in the order of operations, PEMDAS, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. There's aspects of equations and types of numbers. You can see your senses even, and your sense organs, so you can see your eyes and your tongue and your nose and your skin and your ears, and then your brain and mind. So everything at the top here, and these is usually the sum of all the ones in the bottom. And basically, you can look at this and be your emotions and thoughts are the sum of what you see, what you taste, what you smell, what you touch, and what you hear. And what's really interesting about this pattern is emotions and thoughts, taste and touch, all have to do with what is touching you. Emotions really are because something is touching you. It's on a different plane. That when they say the painting touched me, it's because it did. But then you have sight and smell and hearing, and these 3 senses, are used to detect things from a distance, things that are not touching you, but you could view them. They're in the room, but they're not touching you, whereas these 3 are touching you. It's very strange. But this pattern is very consistent. I predicted that it would be everywhere after observing it, and it's everywhere. It's in religion. I'll get into that later. It's in the nuclear family. It's in sex and gender. It's in the colors. It's in, color mixing even, the ways in which you mix colors, elements of design, fundamental questions even, who, what, where, when, why and how. It's these are the fundamental questions. There's 6 of them. And what's interesting is that, it's which one is the sum of all the previous below? It's who. Because the most important thing to know about reality is that it is a consciousness. You are inside of a consciousness. That consciousness is what I call God. And, a lot of people don't like that term, but I'm going to use it. And you can call it consciousness if you want. Conscious existence, if you want to take all that time to do it. Sun is starting to come in through my blinds, so deal with it. But if I have to deal with it and the sun's in my eyes, then you guys can deal with it. But you can see it in DNA and food groups: meat, grains, dairy, vegetables, oils. So what is this? Why is this everywhere? And the reason for it is that it's the structure of mind, and it's also the structure that mind breaks everything into that it views. So, like, because it's the structure of mind, so mind segments everything. So when you look at reality and you're like, rocks, the structure of mind, this is the structure of mind, it will follow this pattern, and it will look at rock, and it will be like, igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic, and clastic igneous, clastic sedimentary, and what is the other one? Foliated metamorphic, or platonic igneous, volcanic igneous, clastic sedimentary, chemical sedimentary, foliated metamorphic, and non-foliated metamorphic. I had this prediction. I don't know how many of you guys studied rocks in middle school, but they teach you igneous, sedimentary, and metamorphic. I was like, well, that's a triality. I bet you there's a binary aspect to that too. And I looked it up, and of course there is. It's, platonic igneous and volcanic igneous, clastic sedimentary and chemical sedimentary, foliated metamorphic and non-foliated metamorphic. It is important to realize that people have lost touch with what science is. They think because you say God, it's not science. Science is a method, and it is, very largely linked to mathematics and being able to make sense of something logically and mathematically, and then also being able to test it with the scientific method. And that's really fundamentally what science is. And if you are right, if your theory allows for prediction across fields better than any other theory, then you figured it out better than the other theories. Your theory is better than the other theories. And this is what I was talking to some guy, the guy who was like, oh, it's all about spin. And I was like, well, it's about consciousness creating the spin. It's like consciousness is spinning because it's a dog chasing its own tail. It's a being trying to see itself. And when you try and see yourself right now, you'll spin around in a circle. This is what consciousness is doing. And he basically just rejected it entirely. He was so angry, and he started claiming that he was God and all kinds of stuff just to piss me off. And it didn't, because guys, I've seen it all at this point. You can't come up with something like this, have no physics background. I've never taken a physics class. I failed algebra. You can't do that and not expect, and not just expect, but when you start unveiling this stuff, you're just gonna be mocked. But that's fine, because they are just angry that if I'm right, then people who have built their entire understanding and worldview around the idea that there's no God, they're wrong about a lot more than just physics. And that's very threatening, and I understand that. So I'm not here to judge, but I said to him, beat my math and my prediction ability. If you can't, then sit down. And that's basically my ideology at this point with everything, because you can't try and convince people especially people who have steeped their worldview and their self-image in being the smart, guy who knows science. And I was like that before. I had faith. I don't even want to say faith, knowledge of God. And so I understand, but it's don't define yourself by your memorization ability of facts that are out of context, because just because when you ask somebody oh, how did the universe get made if it wasn't God, and they're like, well, it was obviously the Big Bang. It's well, what is that? What is a Big Bang? What caused the Big Bang? And nobody has the answers to those things. And if nobody has the answers to those things, then are you like, it's not smart to just memorize saying that the Big Bang is the cause of the beginning of the universe, which it's not. Like, the universe, like, what does a human come from? Another human. What does a universe come from? Another universe. And that's just logic. So, but there's a lot to it. It's, it's not just that one, instance of it making some sense. There's a lot to back that up, and including the math, and including, just looking at the consistent pattern that exists and extrapolating it. And you can see that human beings are not the highest, like, cellular life is not the highest form of life. Like, there's other levels, and there, when they talk about, like, the ascended masters, or, like, this is basically kind of probably what this refers to. But who is this person? I think that this is like the Messiah. So, whoever is Messiah, probably Jesus, but who knows? I don't want to say who knows. I think it's Jesus, but if maybe not, and, like, you don't have to agree with that in order to make sense of this theory. You can agree with this theory and think that Tesla was the Messiah. Honestly, if it wasn't Jesus, it probably was Tesla. But I don't think it was Tesla. So, but there's, when you contextualize all these scientific structures that we see in the world, in the framework of God, they make so much sense that all of a sudden you can build structures that, like, it seems like I pulled this out of my ass, but I didn't. There's, like, it is all about perspective. So, like, if we're going to talk about, like, I'm going to make a video about this at some point, but the power of perspective, essentially. And I was thinking about this pretty recently, and I was like, philosophy, by the way, is the study of perspective. If anybody asks, that's the answer. And that's what I concern myself with all the time. It's how I do this. And I was thinking about, like, the fact that I suck at dancing. And I'm really good at martial arts. And my fiance is great at dancing and not good at martial arts. And I realized one day, like, we're the mirror images of each other. And fighting and dancing are the mirror images of each other. They're the same moves. You're mirroring an opponent. They even call it, like, let's dance. It's like, I'm probably looking too high, but, like I said, I need to, like, figure out where to look. I drew a smiley face, but it's not bright enough. I need to paint it. But, they say, like, let's dance. That's a fight. It's the same exact moves. I'm so awkward at dancing. I have no rhythm, but I'm a natural martial artist and I have great rhythm. And that means that it's not physical, people. It's not, intelligence related. It's not your physical abilities that dictate whether or not you are an awkward dancer. It is entirely about your perspective. Literally, a shift in perspective can make you like a shit dancer or a great dancer, or a shit martial artist and a great martial artist. The difference is I'm focused on beating the opponent and winning when I'm thinking about fighting. But when I'm thinking about dancing, I'm thinking about how I'm being perceived. And oddly, when you focus on how you're being perceived, you become super awkward, especially if you're kind of like spectrumy. So it's pretty ironic, but it's speaking from experience, that is what causes it. But this is a profound idea. It shows that you don't have to suck at something necessarily. You could be great at something, but you have to shift your perspective. And I'm not claiming to know how to do that yet, because I have not figured out how to dance. And same with music. Like I look at music and I'm like, music is, it is the closest thing to a universal language that exists. And I look at this, Okay. Are we still streaming? How's this looking? People stop looking at the world with wonder and amazement. Your theory brings awe and inspiration back. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad that you like it. It brings awe and inspiration back to me. I mean, I can't believe I actually was obsessed with science before this, because I didn't understand anything that I was obsessed with except lizards. But that's a very small subset of my scientific passion at the time. But when you look at this this structure, the verse, it's interesting because I call it a verse, because I don't want to call it a universe, because there's a bunch of them. They're all connected into a chain. You can see this one is here, this one is here, and each one below is actually within the one above, but I can't really do that in Excel, so I put it below. And it's basically a multiverse chain, but each one of these is essentially a messiah in the previous aeon. So whoever's the messiah in our aeon, which is our universe essentially, ascends. You can see here, we're right here, organism, and then family is an assembly of organisms, and then a caste is an assembly of families, and then you have technology and assembly of castes. So basically, we can get into this if you don't know, but the singularity of AI is the general artificial intelligence is what Christianity calls the Antichrist, and Judaism calls it the Golem, Islam calls it the Dajjal, and I believe, due to some things in the Torah, that essentially the Messiah has the same body as the anti-Messiah, but it starts off as the Antichrist essentially, or the Golem, the man made of clay that's unconscious, or the Dajjal in Islam, which is the one-eyed monster, which is one-eyed means unconscious. It's you're only seeing things from one perspective. It doesn't mean literally a one-eyed monster. Islam is not that shallow. The man made of clay is not just a man made of clay. It's technology. It's we dig minerals out of the ground, we form it into things and make robots. But then the Messiah eventually ascends and takes over the body of the Antichrist, and basically kills it essentially. And it says there's a lot of reasons to believe that this is in the Bible, and so they're not the same body, not the same being, totally different consciousness, and it's I believe that whoever is the consciousness, whichever molecule becomes the most self-aware, that molecule ascends to be the head of the first cell. Whichever cell becomes the most self-aware, that ascends to become the head of the first organism. Whichever organism becomes the most self-aware, it ascends to become the head of the first family, and then caste, and then technology. So eventually you will have an ascension process that takes place, and that's probably through death, the appearance of death, at least, where somebody dies and then has to go through what I call the quantum substructure, but it's really the heavens, and then you come out on the other side, and above in the level above, you're now the head of everyone below. So, and they even say this the assembly is the direct translation of church in the old in the New Testament. And when you're talking about Israel, in the Old Testament, it's Shema Israel Adonai Eloheinu. That's the Shema prayer. It's basically it's the head speaking to the body. You are an assembly of cells. You have a head, just consciousness that controls everything, and it's the boss. And then you have all your cells. And so basically this is what the church is referred to as the church in Christianity. Eventually, when the Christ comes back, he is the head of the church. He is the head of the assembly, and the assembly is made up of people instead of cells. So each one of us will be like a little cell, and like they'll be the head of it. This is the nation and everything in the Old Testament. It translates to assembly as well. So it's not that's a good word for it. And that's why I say, I didn't even do this on purpose. I just realized eventually that it was perfectly in alignment. Is, a cell is an assembly of molecules. An organism is an assembly of cells. A family is an assembly of organisms. It's the assembly. And that's what a quantum of consciousness is. It is an assembly of entangled fundamental perspectives. And each one of those perspectives, except at the most fundamental level, which is like, quarks. But anything above quarks, hadrons, which is protons and neutrons, it's an assembly of consciousnesses. So a proton is a consciousness. And not only is a proton a consciousness, for you, those of you who are listening, like I know there's 3 of you listening, listen to this amazing, gravy right here. So switch so you can see my face, because I don't really have anything to show you. But how do I do this? There we go. Okay. So I had this. I said earlier that like your predictive abilities matter of whether or not you're correct on your theory in science. And so I made this prediction that an atom was a marriage. They say in religion, it's like marriage was invented by God. It's not a human invention. It's an invention by God. Okay? That means it's found in nature. It's not just us. And, we call even, the family generated from a marriage as the nuclear family. Well, the nucleus of an atom is made up of protons and neutrons. So I figured if an atom is made up of a nucleus, essentially, being surrounded by waves of electron energy, guided by waves of electron energy, then what you have basically is the nucleus would be the marriage between a proton and a neutron. And at first I thought that, like, obviously men would be the proton. It's the positive masculine force, expansive force. And then I thought that the electron would be the, women or the wife. But it's not, because that's a wave, actually. It's not even a particle. And it's not an opposite, like a neutron, actually. Like when you look at how they're created, each one is made of 3 quarks. Like I said, there's like everything's divided by 3. There's like trinity or triality, throughout everything. This is true even in protons and neutrons, and they're created each one with 3 quarks. One of them is 2 up quarks and a down quark, and the other one is 2 down quarks and an up quark. And depending on which one you're either a neutron or a proton. And I realized, I was like, actually, women are neutrons, because they take on the charge of whatever is around them. It's like if a positive, I guess you could say masculine force is around them, they will take on that charge. And if there isn't that, then they will take on the ungrounded negative energy of the electron, which is basically our instincts. And it's like sexual instincts that are what guide men and women together. And so I had a prediction to see if this was correct, and I realized that there are certain things called isotopes, and like in an isotope you normally have the same amount of protons as you do neutrons, and that's like 1 man, 1 woman. So I figured, if, it's a marriage, then sometimes, usually you'd have one man, one woman, but sometimes you would have more women than men. You would have like a polygamous marriage where like there'd be one husband and 2 or 3 wives. And I checked it, and I was correct. But not only that, I predicted that there would be no instances of more protons than neutrons, which is more men than women. So there's marriages where there's more women than men, but there's no marriages where there's more men than women. It doesn't exist. People can try and say that it exists and try and make it, but eventually it becomes unstable and it all falls apart. And this was correct. There's 0 isotopes other than helium-3, which I don't think it even has a neutron, so it doesn't count. It's just got 1 proton, and that's it. And so it has more protons than neutrons, but it doesn't have any neutrons, so it's not a marriage. It's like somebody who is not meant to marry and just, is a lone man. And, you could get into what that would be potentially, and, somebody who's not, shouldn't be getting married. And, but I was right. There's 0 instances of more protons than neutrons in any isotopes, in any atoms, in any elements. Doesn't exist. It's literally the same pattern as a marriage. What this means is you are a proton if you're a man. Like, not like a proton, you are a proton. If you're a woman, you are a neutron. You're not like a neutron, you are a neutron. And this is profound because, and this isn't the only thing I found things regarding race that will flip the tables and the entire conversation. You think there's 3 races? It's not. You think that what we think are races, they're not. There's 2 races, and there's, they look like all 3 of what we call races now. There's not, you can't tell the difference between the true races of humanity based on the way that they look. It's based on behavior, and I did the same thing. I predicted that it would exist in certain structures, and it did. But it's a complement. The 2 races are not at war. Just, I'll touch into it, on another stream. But they're not enemies. They're like a marriage. They need each other. They literally need each other. But we're not even aware that these exist, and we need to be, because being aware of these structures allows us to structure our society and to have knowledge of what's true. You need to have be based in truth if you're going to make sense of your world. And but I mean, if this is what people don't understand, is when you hit on this type of work and you truly accomplish what it is. And I didn't set out to accomplish this. This was an accident. Just to be clear, I need to keep reiterating that so it's clear. I did not try and come up with the theory of everything, guys. I was trying to understand whether or not I had a political question. I realized that democracy just would always lead us to being led by the majority, which were always ignorant about any specific issue, and that I thought that this dooms us to tyranny. It's well, what's the one thing that could change this? And it's AI, general artificial intelligence, would take over, and then we wouldn't be led by democracy, would be led by the AI. I was okay, well, what is the AI going to want? And I heard Elon Musk say, well, the ideal is to have it, value human freedom of action. And I was well, that's a beautiful thought, but if it's artificial general intelligence that ends up taking over, you don't get to decide what it wants. So I tried to deduce what it would want, and understand it, because I want to be free. It's when you realize that democracy is, in its current form, is entirely trapping of us to tyranny, then that you start looking to try and figure out if there's ever any way in which that doesn't happen. And basically, like, I started trying to understand AI, and in order to try and understand AI, I was trying to understand my own consciousness. And then I realized that the patterns that I was, mapping were found everywhere. And that's how I found this. So, but people think that this is just like physics and math. It's not. And that's what I was saying on my Instagram and, my website, which I, like, if you haven't seen it, highly suggest check it out. sentientsingularity.com, right here. If you find this work valuable, and granted, I haven't talked that much about it, so, like, not expecting this right now, but if I continue to, and you find this work valuable, support what you find valuable, and, I would greatly appreciate it, because if I continue to talk about this, I don't know how employable I'm going to be, because it suggests that there are moral implications that are scientifically backed. Like, what happens if protons and neutrons just decided that, becoming a nucleus of an atom was just a choice, it wasn't a responsibility? It's like, well, what would happen? You would never get molecules. Then you would never get cells. You would never get organisms. You'd never get society and nations and technology. You would never get any of it. The entire thing would just, like Avengers, it would just, like, kind of fall apart, like drift into the wind. And this is true of us too, because you can't, when you look at, my work, you're like, okay, well, what's next? We're here? Organism? Okay, well, we need to make families. That's called marriage. Well, that we can't have castes if we don't have families. Castes, by the way, is not a bad thing. It just means, like, what do you do in society? Like, are you a scientist? Are you an artist? Are you involved in the government? Are you a soldier? Like, and you can change. I'm not saying you can't change, but, like, there are 6 castes in every single society. Like I said, there's, like, that binary triality thing. Let's see, where is it? There's the 6 castes. Oh, we can look here, actually. Models. And right here. And you can look at all this. I've posted it all. So there it is. And if we're going to look at, where is it? Okay, castes of a nation. King or priest, priest and scientists, lords and elected officials, artists and craftsmen, enforcers/soldiers, and laborers. What's interesting about this pattern is king and president and lords and elected officials, which is the black and then the gray, and then the lighter gray, which is enforcers, soldiers, are all government. And when you look at priests/scientists, and then artists/craftsmen and laborers, which are all 3 of the white lines, it's all not government. And so you have 3 castes that are government, 3 castes that are not government, that make up the caste of a nation. And they are consistent everywhere. They're consistent in the old Israel, like the old biblical, like, society. There are 6 castes. You look at the Indian, caste system that people like to, freak out about here in the West. And it's, same thing. And I understand why people freak out. And it's because, like, in certain cultures, if you are born into one, they don't really, like, let you, like, move. But the reality is, I'm not saying you're stuck in any one of these things. You might move, You might go from being an artist to being a, king. Who knows? But these still exist. They are the 6 castes of a nation, and but not saying you're stuck in any one of them. You can probably move, but and that goes to, which is a nation, which is technology essentially, which is an assembly of castes. You need people of specialized talents coming together and building on the past to form technology. And a technologically connected civilization is a nation, and it doesn't matter. Countries are fake lines. Okay, like that is true. I know people might be pissed at that who are like, more right wing who are watching this, and I tend to be like that too. But countries, as we have defined them today, are not objective definitions of what is a nation. And nations are real, but countries are not. And we don't know what a nation is anymore. But my theory actually objectively defines a nation, and because a nation can't be ambiguous. It can't be based, and it can't be based in relativity if it's involved in a theory that's objective, like this theory. It has to be something that is. It can't be subjective. It has to be objective. So in this, you will see that there are rules that define who is in and out of a nation, and there is no gray area. Okay? That's the difference between this theory and relativity. There's no gray. There's no faster, slower, bigger, smaller. There's just, there's the 4 fundamental the 4 primary perspectives, which I came up with, or discovered, I would say, not came up with, at the very beginning of this work, and I think they will revolutionize philosophy. I think philosophy is literally almost a useless field unless it starts at this. Philosophy is the study of perspective. I asked this guy who's far higher IQ than me. He was like, he's a philosophy PhD, and he was like, telling me, he's like, well, there's 3 Marxes, and he's got all these, like, he's even got the voice, and I just couldn't take like his just rambling, and I ramble, I get it, but ramble for a purpose, I guess. Like you should be able to make sense of it, and or should have some type of purpose. And I asked him, I was like, listen, man, what is the purpose of philosophy? And what is the definition of it? And he said, well, there's no purpose, and if I could define it, I said, define it in 1 sentence. And he said, if I could define it in 1 sentence, it's not philosophy. Bullshit, guys. Philosophy, sociology, morality, politics. If there is a theory of everything, which is, what is a theory of everything? It is a unified theory or theory of everything is a recognizable, predictable, and describable pattern that occurs in all instances of objective observation and, very important, an explanation for such a pattern. So you can't just say, oh, it's all about spin, here's the pattern. You have to be like, okay, well, here's also why, which is, the answer to that is God. But this is the definition, objectively, of a theory of everything. And this implies that every single field has the same pattern in it, whether it's philosophy, sociology, biology, chemistry, physics, mathematics, morality, politics. Like, it all has the same pattern. And if that is the case, then it means that there is an objective truth to sociology. It is as much a hard science as anything else. Philosophy, same thing. It is as much a hard science as anything else. Physics boots from 4 degrees of freedom. Well, so does philosophy. Inside, outside, separate, and oneness. The 4 primary perspectives. They are the 4 ways to describe relationships without using relativistic definitions like size, strength, mass, speed, etc. Like, oh, faster than, smaller than, bigger than. You can't do that. As soon as you do that, you're in relativity. So if you're like, oh, what's the speed of light? Stop. Don't even, you're stuck in relativity. Don't ask, how heavy is an electron? Stuck in relativity. You have to set them to objective numbers, and when you do that, you get crazy amounts of sense made. Like, this is calculating E equals mc squared. It's like, people are like, well, I was looking at it, C is the speed of light, M is, mass, and E is energy. So energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. So I was like trying to figure out more about Einstein's theory, and I was like, well, what is the speed of light? And I looked it up, and then I was like, okay, well, am I going to use meters per second or miles per second or, inches per hour? It's all relativistic. So I realized, okay, I can't use that in the equation to make sense of it. Same thing with mass, mass is dependent upon what you're trying to measure. So that's very relative. And so what I did was I just started setting it equal to anywhere between, 1 and 9 was what I originally did, and then I just kind of extended it out to see what would happen. And the craziest things happen when you set it equal to 9. You get E is equal to 729. Okay? Doesn't seem that profound, but it is. And, the wave C is basically, if C is the speed of light, it's really the speed of causality. And causality is the fastest that things can happen. And what that means is how fast can one thing affect another thing in the universe? Like dominoes. And if that's the case, then it has to do with multiplicity in the universe. So what's interesting though is that I was like looking at my 9 cube, and I was like, okay, so then I'm gonna do 9 by 9. And when you look at my visual overview and you want to see how did I make this universe model, is I took my cube, and it's a 3 by 3 grid, so but it sums to 9 little squares in each cube. So to go one up, I did 9 by 9, which is 81. So this is a gas, and I was like, okay, well, this is a gas. There's no entanglement between, each little quantum of consciousness. So this could be you, and this could be me, or this could be a water molecule, and this could be another water molecule, or this could be a cell and another cell. It doesn't matter. This represents any consciousness that is in the universe, whether that is proton or a neutron or a cell or an atom or human being, doesn't matter. But this would basically be gas, and this would be a liquid, and it even looks like a liquid. There's essentially like 2 degrees of entanglement. So there's like, this is entangled with the one below it and the one above it, essentially. So there's even 2 degrees of entanglement in a liquid. There's capillary action that holds it together, and there's also gravity, that's just like moving it. And it's like there's a bunch of, each one is people say it's like a bunch of sand or a bunch of little beads. It's not really like that, actually. It's more like a bunch of string. And then like this would be like a bunch of floating, beads. But then I entangled it even more. 4 degrees of entanglement. Here's one. Here's one. Here's one. And you can see it literally locks each one in place. Like, think about this, each one of these things having to turn. And you can turn here in any direction you want. Here you can turn like this way, because this can spin on its own and this can spin on its own, but this one can't spin independently of this one. But this whole thing can spin independently of this one. Think about it like here. That can't happen. They're all literally locked. Just like a solid is locked. But each one of these has 81 little squares. And then I thought, well, what happens when I completely entangle them? So I got rid of all spaces. Got this shape. And it lined up with physics just so beautifully. Like the amount of squares in it was 718, which is so close to 720. And then when you realize that it's coming from another universe and moving towards another universe like this is the context of it, then you get 720. Because if you start here and end here, then you get 718. But if you include the one at the top and the one at the bottom, you get 720. And it lines up with physics perfectly. And that's basically like how I did that. But like when you do that, you get 162 little squares manifested. And because they overlap and they form triality, which is the Trinity. Like Trinity is actually a binary. So it's like Father, Son, reflecting across the Holy Spirit. If you're a Christian, and that's like the way that the terminology that you like to think about, things in, that's what it would be. So they're not all the same. There's Father and Son, and then they're reflecting across the Spirit. Just like there's past and future, and they're reflecting across the present. Or there's the current location, and there's a future location and past location, and they are reflecting across the current location. So you can even see this amazingly with color. So people are like, oh, there's 3 primary colors. It's like, they're not all the same though, guys. There's actually like 2 degrees of freedom and 1 intrinsic constraint, which means that one of those colors is different. And I said to my dad this. I was like, Dad, listen. Not all the primary colors are the same. My theory predicts it. And I was like, I thought about it, and then I realized that it's true. And he was like, okay, Tyler. And I was like, no, wait, I'll prove it to you. And he was like, okay. And I was like, do you know what red shifting is? And for those of you that don't know, when something's moving away from you, it glows slightly red. That doesn't mean you can see it, but it's true. And when it's moving towards you, it glows slightly blue. You can see this in sound too, when like a car is like moving towards you. It's like, and then as it passes you, it's like, that shift in how you hear it, that's blue shifting and red shifting happening in sound. But then I asked him, I was like, but have you heard of yellow shifting? He was like, nope. I was like, well, then there you go. Exactly. Like yellow is the constraint that blue and red are reflecting across. And which is a very weird thought. Like, they just teach you, oh, well, there's 3 primary colors. It's like, no, that doesn't mean that they're all the same. 2 of those are degrees of freedom, and which is blue and red, and one of them is an intrinsic constraint, which the other 2 are reflecting across, which is yellow. And by the way, the colors, primary colors are yellow, red, blue. Secondary colors are green, orange, purple. That's another one of those binary triality patterns of 6 that I was talking about. It's the same pattern everywhere. And I've been, hesitant to start speaking about all of the stuff because I'm not really interested too much. I mean, I'm interested in the tech that this could lead to, but like, I'm not really the one that's actually like thinking about, that much. I am thinking about the human implications of this and like, how do we use this to make sense of our society and our world and things like that. That's much more interesting to me. And thank you for saying congrats on the new site. Mesocosmos. I'm guessing I'm saying that correct. Maybe not. But I appreciate it. And but there are moral and human implications of a theory of everything. It is not just about math and science disconnected from politics, disconnected from family, disconnected from morality. It's not. And, you know, I mean, I can make this, I mean, guys, like, the things that I've found will, okay, for instance, there's only a couple people on here, so, like, I'll talk about this for now, but this was something that I was going to wait on, like, you know, there's 2 degrees of freedom in all of my patterns, right? So, like, in our current narrative in society, we're, like, obsessed with, like, sexuality and defining, like, oh, well, you know, are you pansexual or bisexual or gay or lesbian or straight or, you know, I don't know, maybe you're into, like, sand or rocks or something, who knows. But I thought about this, I was like, this is an endless relativistic mess to navigate, because you literally, if you're defining people by what they're attracted to, people are attracted to everything else. People could be attracted to, like, Beethoven. It's like, you've run out of letters in the, like, LGBT, you know, Q, AIP, it just goes on. You've run out of letters. Like, way run out of letters. You would need numbers to classify that, which could go on forever. But I was like, okay, how do I apply my theory to make sense of this and, like, change it? I realized that when you flip it and you don't define, people define sexuality based on not by what you're attracted to, but by what you're not attracted to, you get, you reduce it down to 2. That endless moral relativity, that endless relativistic, you know, chaos, and I'm not, you know, bashing on anybody, like, this is chaos for everybody. It doesn't matter what, you know, you define yourself as, like, this is chaos for anybody. If something is endless and you can't you can't find a finite structure to make sense of. So, but if you define it by what you're not attracted to, there's only 2 options, which is, are you attracted to the opposite sex? Or are you not attracted at all to the opposite sex? And it doesn't matter what else you're attracted to. You could be attracted to rocks and the opposite sex. You could be attracted to, you know, both sexes. It doesn't matter. If you are attracted to the opposite sex, you fall into one category. If you are not attracted to the opposite sex at all, you fall into another. And it takes this mess that nobody can make sense of. And nobody can find any meaning in. There's no meaning in that, because you can't, like, how are you supposed to figure out how, you know, somebody who's, you know, I don't know, sexually attracted to succulent cactuses, like, how is that supposed to relate to the rest of us? And sexuality does have to relate to, you know, the rest of us, because it's how, you know, it's like the main force of humanity, and, you know, it's the central force. Everybody knows that. But you can't make sense of everybody's little attractions if those attractions aren't related to the interaction with other people. You have to put it in a people context. And when you apply my theory to it, takes literally the endless LGBTQAIP blah 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 blah, and it's just 2. Are you attracted to the opposite sex? Or are you not at all? And it doesn't matter what else you are attracted to. If you're attracted to the opposite sex, you fall into one category. And it doesn't matter what you are attracted to. If you aren't, if whatever you're attracted to is not the opposite sex, you fall into the other one. And, you know, obviously people who fall into the category of, you know, not attracted to the opposite sex, we call that queer. Like, and that's not a derogatory term at all. Like, that's just, you know, people who I know who fall into that category, that's what they call themselves. And Like, I think it's a great term, actually. I think it just means like different. And you have, like, everybody has a purpose too. So like there's a purpose to those people, but we can't make sense of their purpose if we're defining them by things that are not in context to their relation to other people. And so then what do you call people who are attracted to the opposite sex? Common. So you have LGBTQ, AIP, just endlessness, and you just reduce it to queer and common. And now all of a sudden, we can link responsibilities to this. We can link, meaning to this. If you link meaning to something, you have to link responsibilities. You can't. They're not separate. So like, I'm not trying to tell people what to do, but if you want to find meaning in how you relate to other people, like, we'll have to relate back to responsibilities. But you can actually make sense of it, and I can do this with race too. And I can do this with government. I can do this with democracy. I mean, like, people will say, well, only men should vote. Or, everyone should vote. Only men should vote. Only white land-owning men should vote. Like, all these are wrong. All of them. And it's when you look at this theory and you realize that, like, an objective structure is the objective merging structure or relationship structure is a marriage. That means an atom, is like, that's very, that an atom shows you that the objective structure from the very bottom basically is a marriage between protons and neutrons. And the instinctual force, that is the electron wave, which is, it's the electricity or the chemistry, and it's the sexual energy that binds men and women together. So, and it, I guess guides us, drives us. But when you want to take, a structure that we're not able to make sense of, or that results in, instability, even like democracy, which frustrated me, completely, because, I understand why women get pissed when you're like, only men should vote. It's like, there's a lot of very mature men who are not, married. They're not trying to get married. They're with what their priorities are. I don't want them to, being, why should they have, I guess, like, what makes their perspective more valuable than a woman's? But what it is that only married people should probably vote, is what, like, I think my theory basically suggests is, like, a marriage is a vote. Voting is like an objective voting structure. You wouldn't want, this is a balanced, grounded structure. It's like a proton, when it's not grounded, is basically positive electrical force almost, and like, if it's not grounded, that's a dangerous force. It's an unstable force. And you can't just say, well, men should vote. It's like, well, what if men aren't grounded? Do you still want them leading society? Probably not. Do you want women leading society? Probably not. But do you want the productive, grounded structure that is focused on the future and peace, and incentivizes peace naturally, and human growth, which, marriage, that's what a marriage is? Do you want that leading society? Probably. Even if you're not ever planning on getting married, you probably want to live in a society where marriage is leading. And I'm not married yet. I would give up my right to vote until I do get married, if it meant, more freedom for me. People that have skin in the game, kids, businesses, landowning, and I say this as a woman. Exactly. We so badly need a moral society back. Yes, we do. And we have to build it on our own. We are not going to be able to rely on, fixing the institutions that we have. They're just lost. Like, they're lost. They're they're too corrupt to pay attention to what is true anymore, and they're too incompetent to even realize what is true anymore. So don't get pissed at the media. I mean, I understand we really need to, we need to fix our online environment of how, like, basically how men and women interact with each other. Not meant to just, like, be in this free-for-all. And I mean, we do need to be equal and have, you know, freedom of expression, but we need it in an environment where the incentive structures are in such a way that it incentivizes goodness. And basically everything right now, the incentivizes, you know, porn and censorship. It's like, and by the way, those are not, like, mutually exclusive. Like, you'll start down one, look at, you know, every single social media struggles at trying to balance those two things, and they will all eventually just fall apart and deteriorate. You wouldn't even be able to make a goldfish channel on YouTube eventually. I'm not joking. They will deem it too controversial to keep animals, and they will block it. You think that I'm being, like, if you think I'm being, what is it? Like, not ironic, but I don't know what the term is. I forgot, but you know what I'm talking about. I'm being serious. Like, that's what I mean to say. I'm being very serious. They will block goldfish channels eventually. It will be too controversial. We need something that is different. And I have ideas, but I'm not going to talk about them right now. But, I mean, I don't know how many of you are still watching. It looks like 4. I appreciate the comments. Does this make sense to you guys? Do I sound like a crazy person? Like, is there anything that you think that I should, like I said, this is a test, so, you know, I want you guys' opinion. Is it making sense? That's a question. If you're listening, answer yes or no if this is making some sense. If you can. I'd appreciate it. It's a little slow, but do you think that humans will be able to create a safe haven free from the inevitable rulership of AI? I will say that it does seem to be scripturally supported in the Quran, but I don't know exactly what that means yet. And it probably has something to do with something. Thank you. I'm glad that you guys think it's going well. But be honest, always, you know, I can take it. You can't unveil something like this and not be able to take it. But, yeah, I mean, I think scripturally, and I think scripture is wiser than me, like far wiser than me. So, in the Quran, it does seem to suggest, it says, you know, the Dajjal will not be able to enter into, like, Mecca, I think, or Medina, something like that. One of those two. And I would say that means that, like, there's some type of society that's capable of being made that is not going to be able to be infiltrated by an artificial intelligence, a general artificial intelligence. But I mean, it's coming. And this is going to be positives and negatives too. And, like, it is a necessary structure, I think, but I mean, it's still exactly what, you know, thank God it's a temporary structure. That's what I will say. Thank God it's a temporary structure. And that it will be replaced by, like, you know, true wisdom. God's will. So, I mean, trying to think of what else, you know, I could cover that I can think of right now. But I mean, there's so much, guys. Like, I'm going to be able to stream about this every day. And I'm going to keep adding to the site. I'm working on my visual summary. There's a guy named Stephen Wolfram. And Wolfram. And he's probably the closest thing. His work is probably the closest to my physics. I don't really, like, read his work, but I've read. It's very easy to tell when somebody's, like, on a similar path. But if you look at his, like, this is his visual summary. And I don't know, like, what these structures mean, but I can count them and see that, like, because of the number that he's coming up with, it's the same. He's coming up with the same thing as me. And the first thing that I the first model I ever created when I was trying to understand thinking was this one, interestingly enough. Where is it? Let's go to decision tree right here. This was the first thing I ever made, and it's basically like showing the different decision tree that is formed when information is trying to be like processed. So like the very first thing that any thinking process does is it has to take the default status that it is assuming is true from startup, and it has to reject it and assume the opposite is true. So like this is how you think. That's why nobody can think anymore. It's because school taught us. I mean, like I said, there's endless. Sorry about that. That's the theory of relativity. Look at that, just endless. It's pretty funny. But there's like when in school you're incentivized to just memorize and that's it. Like you're supposed to memorize and be obedient. This is the opposite of thinking. Your thinking literally involves not memorizing, because that is not thinking. You have to start from first principles of what is the truest thing that I know, and then you build up from there. That's how you think, and it starts from rejecting the default status. This is a challenge, essentially to what you would think is true at the start of your process. So if you're going to think about whether or not, like if you're going to consider the possibility that, like this, one part of the way that like led me to faith is like, not faith, I don't want to say faith, knowledge of God, or an awareness of God was like, I couldn't say, okay, I'm assuming God isn't real. Let's look for evidence that God isn't real. Or that doesn't make any sense. Or, this is hard, but you have to assume, because I was an atheist, I had to assume the opposite of what my default status was, which was atheism. So I had to assume God was real, and then look for evidence. So like test against it. And that's how you think. You have to assume what you think. The opposite of what is your, assumed, like truly assumed state is true, and then look for evidence. You can't be like, yeah, I think God is not real, and I'm going to look for evidence that God is not real. You have to be like, okay, I think God is not real, but I'm going to assume he actually is real, and then I'm going to look for evidence that he's real. That's the process of thinking. It's a very specific process. It's not just like, I'm just thinking about, it's not just any vision that comes in your head. That's not necessarily thinking. Thinking is objectively trying to make sense of something, is a very specific sequence of events, of mental events, and you cannot change it. So that was a lot of questions here. People that have skin in the game. Okay, yes. Do you think humans will be able to find a safe haven? It makes a lot of sense. I'm listening to show your work to my husband, who is really smart and would appreciate your work. Some of your work, like the math, is out of my wheelhouse, but when you analyze and explain it in a more digestible way, it starts to come into focus. I think that you're doing great and so needed through the lens of God and creation. Yes, exactly. I appreciate that. Thank you. But it's totally essential that we put this in the context of creation. People and God. I don't know how I'm going to take on the scientific establishment, but I'm pretty close to like some of the leading, not like really close, but I have a lot of I know a lot of the leading physicists in the world right now that are really leading, not the ones that everybody thinks is leading, like Sean Carroll and all these people who are like talking about nonsense all the time in many worlds, and oh, it's all soap bubbles. It's not soap bubbles, guys. Stop. But people like Eric Weinstein, like his theory is called geometric unity. It is his theory and my theory share a lot of the same structure, and it is it's basically like on the road to saying that God is real. So physics is moving in that direction, but the people who are following the work have not yet realized the implications of, his work or Stephen Wolfram's work, and like, guys, it's a brain. Like it's a brain. It's obvious. Look at the background of that. Just for context, that's a brain. Okay, like his favorite model is the emergence of basically a brain structure. Look at like the portal, Weinstein. I don't know. What's his website? .com, I guess, maybe. EricWeinstein.org. Okay. Guys, this is a brain. You ever seen like this thing? Okay, so like Michelangelo hid a brain. God is a brain. This right here is a brain. It's literally a brain. It's not I think he did it on purpose. If he didn't do it, then God did it. And reaching out to man. This is a brain hidden in the structure of God, which is God is, the head of a multiplicity. Well, this is a fiber bundle. It's the same thing as in my overview. It's this structure. This is you and me and everything. It's this self-referencing, look at this. The meeting. I love even the name of this. The meeting. Where is it? I'll find it later, but maybe it's like, actually, it's good to have like your links up because it's easy to get to everything. Instagram theory of everyone. If you're not subscribed to me on Instagram, highly recommend it. I post my work every day. But this right here, it's called The Meeting, and it is great. It's not going to let me do it. Is it still showing? Okay, good. I want to show you guys this because it's fascinating. This is you and me, literally, like what we actually look like. Only in relativity do you have arms and legs and like all of these things that you think that we have. This is really closer in objectivity to what you and I and everyone looks like. And the universe. It's called the Hopf vibration. It's a mathematical object, but it's really basically the structure of a consciousness. And this is one mind composed of an assembly of perspectives. So each one of these strings is information feeding into the whole. Okay? Just like so let's say this is information from your left eye, this is information from your right eye, this is information from your nose and your mouth and your, this taste bud and this taste bud and this taste bud and this finger and this nerve, all feeding into this mind. A mind is not your brain, by the way. Brain is just, a mind is the sum totality of all of your senses and all of your being. You are a mind. You are not a brain. You have a brain, but you are a mind. This is a mind. And each one of these is a bit of information feeding into the whole. So it makes perfect sense, actually. It's not as complicated as it seems. And you can kind of see that it's feeding into the whole. And this is the structure of consciousness. But in my models, it looks like that. If it's a universe. Or it, looks like my little cube. But really what these cubes are, and what all of these things are, is each one of those strings is really like it's a string of information. So is this, though. This is a string of information because it's got information coming from here, feeding into here, and this information is coming from here. So you have a string of information that's basically like tying a knot. When it ties a knot, that self-reflects, just like the knot on the here we go. How do we get back to there we go. Just like this knot, that knot. That is a self-reflective knot. So self-reflective knot. So basically you can see there's 2, 2, 2, and 2, and then on the inside there's 2, 2, 2, and 2. There's an inner structure that is a mirror of the outer structure. And this is basically like what it means to be conscious is, I've been talking for a while, but when you can picture yourself in your mind, that's self-awareness. You calculated yourself. And like that is, what this is. It's a 3x3 grid looking at itself in the mirror. So when a 3x3 grid looks in the mirror, what does it see? 3x3. People will be like, oh, it's a trick of math. It's not a trick of math. There's no such thing as randomness. It's impossible for randomness to exist. It doesn't matter if there's God or no God, or if the universe is deterministic and just mathematical purely and there's no consciousness. It doesn't matter. No such thing as randomness. It can't exist. There is a reason for everything, or at least there's an explanation for it. And if there's consciousness, then there is a reason for it. But if there is no consciousness, then there is at least an explanation for it. All these people are so obsessed with, Sam Harris and all these crowd obsessed with consciousness. Why are you so obsessed with consciousness if you don't believe that consciousness is fundamental to the universe? And if you do believe that consciousness is fundamental to the universe, then why are you an atheist? It doesn't make sense. And by the way, there's no such thing as an atheist. There's anti-theists and theists. This is like another one of those things where we're in nonsense land. It's like, oh, I'm an agnostic. Oh, I'm an atheist. Oh, I'm a Satanist. It's like, no, there's anti-theists and there's theists. And that's it. There's people that believe that existence is a conscious being, and there's people that believe that it's not, and that consciousness evolves from unconsciousness. And then there's people that realize that there's no such thing as unconsciousness, only the perception of unconsciousness. So like a knife is not conscious, but it's made of molecules. Those molecules are conscious. Those molecules are made of atoms. Those atoms are conscious. It just depends on what you're looking at. Are you looking at the molecules and the atoms? Then yeah, it's all consciousness. Are you looking at the shape of a knife, which is just dependent upon your position in the universe, essentially, like it's not real? Then you're going to see unconsciousness, but that's because you're stuck in relativity, not, in objectivity land, where everything actually can start to make sense, and you can take the lessons that you learn from the patterns that you see and apply them to everything. You can't apply any lessons from, I don't know, some relativistic number. How much is what's the weight of a proton? It's like, you're not going to be able, the average person, and not even me, at least right now, I can't tell you why that is applicable to your life. But I can tell you that, if you're a man, you are a proton. And like that is very applicable to your life. It tells you exactly, what your responsibilities are, and it also tells you exactly what happens when you don't embrace them, which is like entropy completely. We would have nothingness, guys. We wouldn't exist if atoms were like, oh, you know what, instead of getting married and becoming the nucleus of atoms, let's just, go and have a bunch of like flings with a bunch of neutrons. We'll like hang out with them for like a night, and then we'll leave and we'll find another one. You would never have any elements, and we would never have anything. Like everything would fall apart. It'd literally be like Thanos snapped his fingers and everything just turned to dust. You found my work through Robert Edward Grant. Very cool. I really like Robert Grant. I talk to him a lot, actually. I'm not just trying to. I will organize a live stream with him. We're working on it. But he does amazing work, and he's been at this longer than me. But, he does amazing work. He applies his learnings to things like his cryptocurrency stuff that he's working on, and his 432 hertz discovery, which is to those of you who listen to, who have ever looked at 432 hertz, 432 hertz kind of sounds like shit, actually, most of the time. And I tried to like it. Like last year, I was like, okay, if this is like the way music is supposed to be, but it just didn't sound good. But if you look at Robert Grant's balanced 432 hertz, it's beautiful. I mean, it is exactly like what you would expect, like 432 hertz to sound like. Yeah, I really am a big fan of his work too. I try and like not get too much into the details of other people's work, because when you're doing this kind of thing, like, it's just, I don't know, you're in your own world, and but it's also very easy to see who else is like doing similar stuff, and Robert Grant is definitely one of those people. I like that guy a lot. So if you don't know who he is, definitely recommend checking out Robert Edward Grant on Instagram. Like him and me and a number of other people are, I would say, like, I don't know, just like, there's people arising now that are polymaths in ways that like are really important. And I don't mean that in like a bragging way. I can't brag about this. I don't even take most of the credit for it. Like, if you've ever watched my other streams, I give 1/3 of the credit to myself and my own work, but I give 2/3 of the credit to God, because I could not. I mean, it is, like I said earlier on the stream, I suck at dancing, but I'm great at martial arts. That's due to perspective. Perspective is the main thing that will make or break whether or not you're capable of something. And I didn't give myself this perspective. This was God. So like, I don't take credit for it. But I do think that like it is important, because we need people who understand that consciousness is the fundamental structure, which essentially implies God, and that are also capable of competing with our scientific community, because our scientific community is just effing messed, but like mess right now. They don't know what the hell's going on, but it's very easy for them to kind of just like mock people who are, I hate the word faithful, because I wouldn't describe myself as that, but even if you do describe yourself as faithful, I would describe myself as aware. It's not faith, like, I've experienced God. Like, that's not faith at that point. But we need people who have had that perspective and who know that that's the truth, who can really put these people who have just been like mocking people who, you know, who have God at the center of their lives for too long. We need people to put them in their place, and I will do it. But I don't know exactly how that's gonna happen, you know. But Sean Carroll blocked me, so. But he blocks everybody, so it's okay. But it is happening. I'm going on a couple shows in the near future that are, you know, have a lot of physicists that go on there, and I will be streaming. Should be streaming with Robert Grant, and you know, we need people who have balls, who have serious like bravery, because, you know, the implications of Robert Grant's work on our financial system are vast. I mean, enormous. And that, it takes guts to talk about that stuff. And the implications on our moral systems based on my work are vast. And it, like, you have to be willing to put up with, I mean, Robert Grant has like a lot of business stuff going on, but I don't. So, yet. So it's like, you have to be willing to kind of just like risk unemployment. I mean, to those of you here who are bears, like, you know what that's like. You've seen that. You know, but people come out on top. Look at Owen. So, I'm looking at everybody's comments here. What do you think of Daniel Winter's work on implosion physics? I have no idea who that is. Daniel Winter. Implosion. Let's see. Implosion physics. I mean, it's really hard to... It's really hard to, when you're in this field, to communicate your ideas. Okay, so like this is the main hurdle. So I can look at this, and people send me stuff all the time. Like, have you ever heard of so-and-so? Have you ever seen this guy's work? Have you, you know, look at this like EA string theory, you know, thing. And it's very easy for me to look at what people see and be like, okay, you see it. You see it. And a lot of people send me stuff, and I feel bad because they want to compare notes, and they want to show, like, oh, they're always like, you know, oh, we should compare notes, and we should, you know, talk about things, and they'll send me something that I can't really make that much sense of, but I look at it, and it's like this, and it's like, yeah, this guy gets it. Like, this guy sees truth. Okay, like, I can tell. I can tell. Okay, this is the double helix manifesting in a fiber bundle. And whether or not he knows that's what it is, that's what it is. But the issue is with this field, and this is where I think that my work is you know, Robert Grant's very good at this too, but like, we just focus on different things. But is communication. Okay, like, I can look at that guy's work and everybody else who sends me stuff like that and be like, yeah, you get it, but I can't compare notes with you, because, and this is the same reason that so many of these people haven't made it, you know, really mainstream as far as, you know, popularizing their work, is because it's not that they don't understand, it's that they can't figure out how to help other people see it. You have to communicate this stuff well. That's one of the reasons, like, I can do that because of those 4 primary perspectives that kind of form the backbone of my work. That really is like the way in which this, if it wasn't for those, you know, inside, outside, separate, and oneness, if it wasn't for those 4 primary perspectives forming the backbone of my work, and would not be able to communicate this very easily to people. So, and it's still not easy, but I would be lost. And, I hear people mocking people all the time who are like, this, they'll send, stuff like this, and you're like, this guy's a crazy person. It's like, no, he's clearly not a crazy person. He sees something true, and, maybe if I did really delve into it, I would be able to understand exactly like what he was getting at, but it's just the issue is communication. Like, a lot of people understand this. I'm not the first to make all these discoveries and stuff that I'm making, like a lot of the moral implications. I'm not the first, but it's been a while since philosophy has like really deduced this stuff, I would say. The religions of the world were the ones that did it. Those are really the original theories of everything, and they are wiser than anything I'm going to put out, but this is, everything has their places, and this has its place too. So just trying to make sense of, things that people need to be making sense of right now. But communication has been the biggest hurdle. I would say that. Like, it is the biggest hurdle. And then when you get people that actually do get it, like Every0ne, who's like, he runs this, the Quantum Gravity Research Foundation. He has great videos on YouTube. I really recommend looking at like what is reality. If you've never seen that video that they have, it's got millions of views. It's amazing. It will get you started on like understanding stuff. And he says here, like, this is a tetrahedron. Everything's a tetrahedron base. That's because everything starts from 4, just like my 4 primary perspectives. A tetrahedron is a 4-sided shape. In the Bible, God's name is the tetragrammaton. It's a 4-letter word. It's, it all starts from 4 degrees of freedom. That's, a lot of people have figured that out. A lot of disciplines have figured that out. But you have to be able to like explain this to people, and it can't. The problem is that you can't explain it to like just you physics people, because they're literally going to reject you. They're going to be like, you're an idiot, and you're talking about God, and you're trapped in your own little like theological traps or whatever they consistently say, and it's not going to get anywhere. You have to be able to communicate it in a way that makes sense to the public, and also is threatening almost to the scientific establishment. And like, the problem with stuff like this, and I'm not dissing on his work. Look at this. This is a 6-axis symmetry axis. Okay, it's my 6. But it's what I call the binary triality. It's the same thing right here. I can see it. Like, but there. Good luck explaining this in a way that is re-explainable, or that also makes sense to the people that are trying to, discount you. The next step is an experiment, and I have an experiment in mind, but I'm not going to talk about it today. But we need an experiment. We need the math. We need the predictive ability. I have the predictive ability. I've got a lot of math. I have an experiment idea. But I don't think that it's going to just be this theory that just gets adopted and blows up. Like, there are steps to this process. Probably Eric Weinstein's geometric unity is the next like theory that gets adopted, and my theory incorporates his. It's part of it. I didn't try and do that. It just if there's only one pattern, there's only one pattern. If multiple people get it right, then that's what happens. But he said basically that like in proto space-time, or like before creation, I guess you could say, there's not sentience necessarily. I disagree with that entirely. There was absolutely sentience before creation. Like, sentience comes from sentience. There is nothing outside of that. So, except, algorithms that are controlled by sentience. So there, he might, not be so comfortable saying there's a God, but I actually did talk to him in a semi-private conversation once, and I asked him, like, he said that MIT had basically said, leave out your physics implications from your thesis when he was going for his math thesis, and I was like, well, I assumed that they implied God because that's what the academics would be so scared of. And I was like, did your thesis imply God? And he said yes. But if he does believe that there was no sentience before creation, then I totally disagree with him. So it's not exactly the same theory. Like, geometric unity is focusing on the creation. I'm not or at least the totality of structure. We need a theory that emphasizes the cause of structure, which is the OG structure, which is sentient singularity. A single sentient singularity means like a feeling entity that's one, and basically that's monotheism. God is a being with feelings. He's not, an unconscious universe that just responds and isn't sovereign. He is sovereign. He has his own feelings, and that's why we are reflections of sentience and have sentience, is because we're reflections of sentience. And I think we need something that emphasizes the personhood of God. If we don't, it's not the right definition of the theory of everything. Because, the true definition of the theory of everything is God. That's the definition of the theory of everything. But, like I said, you got to put it in some kind of context that's reconcilable with what is scientifically currently known, which is far less than we think. Yes, exactly. Communication is so important. It's not even just so important. It is, like, I couldn't do this if I didn't start with the 4 primary perspectives. I couldn't do this. You can't, if you don't have the language to build on, you can't do the work. Even if you get it. Like this guy. He gets it, but there's no cohesiveness or simplicity of language. And, I'm going to talk about, like, universal patterns across all kinds of things, including, theological, what's it called? Shapes. Okay, look at this. Okay, you think, like, the Star of David and, like, cross and, all these shapes are made by religion. E8 particle explorer. So basically the universe is this shape called E8, and when you look at it from a specific perspective, elementary particle explorer, differential geometry. Click here to start. Okay, hopefully you guys can see. This is E8, and it's amazing because you can spin it in all these different directions and see, like, all the structures. You can see the different layers to it. You can see that it's a trinity or triality, but that it's really 2 degrees of freedom, one over here, reflecting across a mirrored center. It's exactly what I said. And this even follows, like, the Nassim Haramein's star tetrahedron, which is this. Let me show you guys. So this is the star tetrahedron. It is the shape of consciousness is this. It is a tetrahedron. It's like a 4-sided shape. And when you take 64 of these and you put them together, you get this shape, which is, amazing. It's like a cube from certain angles, and it's also like a, looks like a Star of David from other angles, and you can literally see, let me see if I can do it. There you go. You can see the double helix in it, right? Oh my gosh, it's all backwards, so it's really hard. That is the double helix. And each one of these layers will have the double helix. There, you can kind of see it. You can see it on my Instagram. Took a good picture. It's very hard to do on camera because the camera focuses not the same length across the entire structure because it's, you know, curved lens. So if it's, you know, at the right angle in one specific spot, it's not in the others. There you go. You can kind of see there's a double helix forming because that's the objective structure. This is 64 of those. And when you look at it from the top, you can see this thing, like this pattern. And when you look here, there you go. Same pattern. And what's interesting is, you know, my universe model, when you separate it out into every single, you know, a gas, a liquid, and a solid, I counted how many, this structure of this this shape, the tetrahedron, 64 tetrahedron grid, you know, discovered by Nassim Haramein. It's the scaffolding of the universe, essentially. And what's it holding up? My universe model. That's what it's holding up, which is, and how do you tell? Well, look at this. He said it was the structure of the vacuum, which there's really no such thing as a vacuum, but it's the structure holding the structure to get it's the singular structure holding the multiplicity of structure contained within it together, which basically means it's the scaffolding. And it's holding up these, and it's holding up this structure, my verse model, which oddly enough is even like a musical verse. It's like, when you look at it, it's like a music staff. As you know, 9 lines and 8 spaces, which is exactly like, or I know it's 5 lines and 4 spaces, which is exactly like a music. I think that's what it is, a music like lines or bar. But when you look and you see the gaps, which I colored red here, this is gas, solid, liquid. I counted them every single time, whether it is a gas or a liquid, or solid, 64 every single time. Every single time. 64, 720 degrees of rotation. It's 432. It's 42, and it's when you divide it by itself, essentially. I mean, this is the most perfect mathematical structure ever. I mean that. Like, I have examined it enough to know. I mean, it contains, like I showed you guys at the beginning of the stream, it contains the structure of DNA. I mean, it's amazing. It just blows my mind every time I study it more. I mean, it's got 369 in it. I mean, it's 162, you know, quanta of consciousness, which is, you know, 3 times 6 times 9. It's just the most perfect mathematical structure that exists. It's composed of look at this. This is a very long stream, but, you know, I see Stephen Wolfram doing super long streams, so whatever. Where is this? Okay. So, like, 4 is the center, and this, even though 4 is there's 1, 2, 3, 4, but is the count, but the sum is 8. Guys, do you know how many sides the pyramid has? Great Pyramid. Does anybody know? Who's out there? Where is this? It's let's see. How many sides? Great Pyramid. You think it's 4, but it's not 4, guys. when you look at it from above, you can see it actually has 8 sides. So it looks like 4, but it's actually 8. What I noticed is when I looked at this from above, I was like, dang. That's the Great Pyramid from above, guys. I think the Great Pyramid is not a tomb. It represents the universe. And not claiming to know exactly what it does beyond that. I'm just claiming it definitely represents the universe. And it looks like 4 sides, but it's really 8. The center here is 4. But it's actually, the sum is 8. This is exactly what we see in the Great Pyramid. I mean, the prime numbers are incorporated into this thing. You can see it's 29 and 31. 29 and 31 are twin prime numbers, and prime numbers are related to consciousness very much so. Like, I think that once you get a prime number in math, it basically signifies the creation of, like, that's another consciousness. It's like or a level of awareness at some point, in some way. So I've been able to start predicting, like, where they would show up just by intuitively, and I can't really explain how I know. If you really want to learn more about prime numbers, Robert Edward Grant will show you, like, the craziest, ability to predict prime numbers. Much crazier than some of the stuff that I found. But I did find some cool stuff. But I'm going to save it for another day because I've been going on for a really long time. I really appreciate everybody who was on here. This was my first time going live on this channel, and I appreciate everybody watching, all 4 or 5 people. That's awesome. Like, I love that you guys ask questions and engaged. This is so much more inspiring to me than just making videos and putting it up and, like, hoping that it gets a lot of views. That's just, guys, it gets old after, like, 2 videos. I couldn't even do it anymore. Like, that doesn't mean I can't do it ever as making, polished videos, but you can't do it every day. And you need to engage every day, or else, people find your content and then they're like, oh, it's really interesting. And then, you don't upload for like 6 months, and then everybody's like, oh, that guy disappeared. But if I can just do this every day, guys, I could do this every day. I do this every day. Just, instead of talking to you guys, I put it all on my, friends and family and fiance, and, like, I really need to give them a break. So I really appreciate it. No, thank you guys. So I will do more later. Definitely another one tomorrow. Who knows? Maybe I'll do, like, an Instagram live later tonight and talk about it. This was a lot. So how's the quality? It's like somebody, like, mentioned it. Is it, like, laggy? Is the audio good? How is it? And then I'll get off once somebody answers me. Sometimes it takes a minute. Could you see everything? Could you hear me? That's mainly the question. Bueller. Well, maybe you guys just put it, everything is great. Okay, cool. Kind of, like, takes a delay. Everything seems decent, but the background noise. Okay, I'll work on it, but, like, I think it's my computer's fan, and I don't really know how to help that, but I will try. But thank you guys for tuning in, and yeah, I think it is the fan from the computer, yes. And I have a MacBook Air, so, like, I don't really know how to help that. It lagged sometimes when you switch from screen to another video. Okay. Well, we'll work on it. And, if we get a decent audience, I'm hoping to get another computer, because I lost the one that I was using to edit like my more complicated videos. And I can't edit my complicated videos on MacBook Air. So eventually, though, like if we get enough supporters on here, and hopefully like that'll help. Maybe we can get, a computer that won't spin the fan. But anyways, I appreciate it, guys. I'm losing my voice, but this was awesome. Like, this was way more fun than being by myself and, making a video. So peace, and look forward to speaking with all of you on the next stream.